Easter weekend, another edition of the CBB Central podcast. And Kevin and Brad joining you as always, talking college basketball. We got a fun show planned for today. We're going to talk some coaching changes because, St. John's has a coach, and that was a lot of fun to watch, certainly. Brad, I don't know if you enjoyed the Twitter mess that was the St. John's coaching search. I think my favorite part of the whole thing, and you can chime in here as well, was I tweeted out, who else could they possibly be waiting for after Porter turned it down? Like, who else could they be wanting to look at? Like, this search had been going for 2 weeks now. And Zach Brasler replies, it's only been a week. And I was like, well, I apologize. It feels like longer. And it did feel like longer. But in the end, they get Mike Anderson. I'm kind of intrigued on your thoughts on the hire, but really your thoughts on the process as a whole, because it was kind of a mess.
So it seems like when people criticize the process, what that's code for is too many people turn down the job. And we saw that with the UCLA too. More so in UCLA's instance than with St. John's. I mean, UCLA undoubtedly ended up with a better coach than St. John's did. They also asked much better candidates. I don't agree with the fact that it's a bad search because they were turned down by like Rick Barnes and every John Calipari. I mean, like who cares if you ask and they say no? I know that a lot of people actually care and they think that it looks bad on the program, like from an optics perspective. So that's already a given, but I don't think it's necessarily bad to have people turn down the job as long as you end up with a good coach. And I think St. John's ended up with it was a weird hire. It was off the board. It was clear that the administration wanted like a sexy name, which Mike Anderson's like a sexier name, I guess, than like Tim Cluse, but not like Ryan Odom and Porter Moser. But I mean, it's a fine hire. It shouldn't be getting as much criticism as it has. But it's very very blah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really funny because Mike Anderson said it in the press conference. He was like, they called me on Wednesday, and here I am. Like to me, I think that speaks more to the ineptitude than anything. And really, to me, the criticism of St. John's is not that they hired Mike Anderson or they got turned down by candidates, but it's like that they seem to have no direction, right? Like, if the reports are true, Mike Cragg preferred Tim Cluse, and like from the start, like last week, wanted Tim Cluse, and was basically told no, like by Joe Oliva and some of the other people on the board, we don't want to hire Tim Cluse. Like let's look for someone else. And so they decide, okay, Porter Moser's the guy, and then he turns it down, and Ryan Odom turns it down, and then there's Jones is in the mix, but they decide against James Jones because I don't know why, but like it just felt very scattered, right? Like I think a good search should have a direction the entire way. Okay, we come in with this is the list of people we want to call. We're going to set up a few interviews, get a few people to campus, and then make the hire, right? Like 2-week process, I think is fine. I don't think it should take, I don't think it needs to take 4 days to get a coach. If you want to take 2 weeks, that's fine. To have a direction. It felt like they went in, they were like, we're going to get Bobby Hurley. And as soon as Bobby Hurley was like, I'm not doing this, they're like, well, Mike Cragg was like, I'm going to get Tim Cluse. But they were like, sorry, you can't get Tim Cluse. And then they just started like marking off names until they decided they had someone they could get. And to me, that was just kind of an indication of the poor process that it went through. I mean, it's somewhat embarrassing in my mind if you're getting turned down by mid-major coaches. Like, you're St. John's, you play in Madison Square Garden. Like if you're going to act like a big program, you should be able to get a coach from UMBC. Like, that's the bottom line.
That's true, and it makes me wonder what they offered. Like maybe they just like crazy lowballed like Ryan Odom. I know for Porter Moser, like it was out there that it was like over $2 million for a contract, which that would be insanity. That would be that would be 50 times worse than hiring Mike Anderson. That's like an established coach's salary for someone who's built one team.
Yeah, I mean, I was on the record. Like, I thought Porter Moser would do well there. He's a really smart guy, really engaging guy. He'd get people in seats. People say, oh, the style isn't good. I mean, I think Porter Moser, they play slow, but they don't like they don't play they play deliberate, but they don't play slow. If that makes sense. Like the tempo is like low per KenPom, but part of that's just the Valley's a slow league. I think they're happy to get shots up early in the shot clock. It's not like they're running like Princeton or anything. They're running on the same concepts that Nevada runs. Pace and space, or Nevada ran with Eric Musselman. Or it's slightly different. Types of looks that they're going to send at you, but for the most part, it's space the floor, put playmakers in space. A big man can post up and make a play. Like his offense is good. It's pretty solid overall. Their defense is very well schooled. He's a terrific defensive coach, and he'd hire people. Like he's a smart dude who understands. Like he could hire Borman from the New York Rens, or hire Rashawn Davis, who's unemployed right now, who can really coach as an assistant, who's recruited in New York City for much of his career. Like they would have hired a staff and it would have been fine. But at the same time, like Porter not wanting to leave, I understood. I thought from the beginning, like he was going to test the waters. He wasn't in it for a contract extension, but he could decide that he didn't want the job, and that's what happened. But I thought that hire would have been fine, but committing 8 years would have been absurd.
Yeah, and I mean, people. My number one takeaway out of this too, also, is that Tim Cluess is now the single most overrated coach in the history of college basketball. I mean, people were acting as if he was like this surefire. Like I put in our group chat earlier, there's a tweet from Rob Doster, and it's like, imagine hiring Mike Anderson when you had Rick Pitino and Tim Cluess available. So you're putting Rick Pitino in the same vein as Tim Cluess. Pitino, who's brought 3 different teams to the Final Four. He's won a national championship, I know, at Louisville. I think probably Kentucky too, right?
I don't know.
And then a Final Four at Providence. He's coached in the NBA. He's done all these things. He's produced pros, and Tim Cluess right now is like the tallest midget in the MAC. Right? I mean,
it's absurd. Like Tim Cluess, like I've defended Tim Cluess on Twitter when people at the beginning were saying this would be a bad hire, because look, Tim Cluess, for all the people saying he recruits bad kids, or all the people saying his teams don't play defense, like his teams have a lot of roster turnover because he knows the best way in the MAC to win right now is to recruit a lot of guards and recruit a lot of kids who are not going to be there a long time. Because if you recruit a freshman who's really good, he's going to leave. Like they're either going to go transfer up or they're going to go pro right away. Like Jalen Pickett might not be there for 4 years, the best freshman MAC's seen in 15, 20 years. Tacole Molson, who we touched on, going to Seton Hall, transfers up. Like the MAC isn't the NEC, but you're going to lose kids, and the easiest way not to lose kids is to not have them for long enough for them to leave. And he had 2 4-year guys in Ricky McGill and EJ Crawford on this year's team, but he's going to be heavy JUCO, heavy grad transfer, heavy sit-out transfer, and that's a perfectly reasonable strategy in college basketball. But Tim Cluess has never won an NCAA tournament game and hasn't been under 100 in KenPom in 5 years. Like, to suggest that he's like some mid-major wrecking crew is absurd. He's a good tournament coach. He's an excellent tournament coach because he strategizes well. He has good game plans. He switches defenses. He gets his guys to play harder at that point in the year than any other time. He gets the most out of his rosters. He really does. He's an excellent basketball coach. But to suggest that he's some like can't miss guy for St. John's is absurd. I mean, I think the argument is like, is there a definitively better coach in the Northeast, mid-major wise, who St. John's could hire? Probably not. And given the fact that Tim Cluess also had the support of every grassroots person in New York City, he's probably going to get good players. So I think from that perspective, you could say, okay, well, if you're St. John's, you just hire Tim Cluess, he'll have the right staff, he'll do well. But like to suggest that he's Rick Pitino or John Wooden is quite frankly absurd.
Yes. So they were 198th in KenPom this year. The year before 137, year before that 117, and 104, 176. So each of the past 6 years they've gone down. And I remember when Iona got an at-large. I think that was with Cluess, right?
Which yes, he was the head coach during that at-large team. Like they were, I don't think they've necessarily went down because they've been bad. Like the problem has been like by the end of the year they usually look about the same. The difference has always just been like at the beginning of the year, his teams used to wreck, and now they kind of struggle because he has more and more new faces every year. There's more turnover, means he struggles more early in the year to get guys in the right spots offensively and defensively. So, I mean, like he's like, as I said, like a very solid coach, a good guy. He's also not a recruiter. Like Tim Cluess is not on the trail all the time, like sitting in grassroots events and like Jared Grasso got him all the players. Jared Grasso is an excellent recruiter. At Bryant now, like he's going to do well. He would have gotten Iona if Tim Cluess had gotten St. John's. Like he got the players. Like that was his job. And I don't think if he wasn't coming with, I don't think Tim Cluess is all of a sudden going to be able to like, take every kid from the Wrens and from high schools like Christ the King and Lou High. Like it's like he's going to walk into rooms and like, oh, Tim Cluess, we got to give him players. Like Tim Cluess probably would have hired a couple of those guys and let them do that for him. But he's not some kind of recruiting extraordinaire. He's a good coach. He's a smart guy.
And kind of the timeline of the coaching candidates. And I mean, we don't know like who, like when people are leaking the candidates, we don't know which side it's coming from. Is it coming from an agent, from the school, for someone who wants their name to be in the mix? So we take that all with a grain of salt. But the kind of timeline is, right, first we had Bobby Hurley as the main target. With then, if not Bobby Hurley, then they'll definitely get Tim Cluess. Hurley goes off the board. Then everyone thinks, all right, it's going to be Cluess. Then supposedly there's the buyout issue. There's an issue of like the general counsel and the president saying you can't hire him. So then we got a few other names, and those names were, all right, it was Porter Moser, Ryan Odom, and there was one other one too, right?
Jones.
Okay, and then James Jones. Right. So then. And then we hear that like Odom and Moser turn it down, right? First Moser, then Odom. But at that time, right, once they didn't hire Tim Cluess and everyone thought that they were, there was so much outrage about why don't you just hire Tim Cluess? Why are you going after the coach of Loyola and like UMBC? Like Cluess is right there. I mean, so people were really dismissing the other candidates' resumes besides Cluess. And Porter Moser, who just went to the Final Four, after transitioning Loyola to a tougher conference, which is incredibly difficult. That doesn't get enough attention. Is how difficult it is to kind of maintain your level of success while moving up to a tougher conference. And then he makes the Final Four, builds a really good team. You have Ryan Odom, who pulled off the biggest upset in basketball history, right? As a 16 seed, hasn't built teams that were as good as Tim Cluess. I mean, he didn't build teams that were as good as Porter Moser's, but he's also like a pretty flashy name. And then James Jones, he's won an NCAA tournament game when they beat Baylor, like maybe 3 or 4 years ago. Everyone and their brother were saying how good Yale was this year and wanted Yale to beat LSU in the first round. People pick it in their brackets, the big upset. And then when James Jones is mentioned, people are outraged. I mean, it's insane. I mean, Cluess's resume might not even compare to those three guys. And I mean, I think it doesn't have like the kind of like the national like sexiness, if you will, of those names. Like those are recognizable names. Like, oh, who's Porter Moser? Oh, he's the guy who took Loyola to the Final Four. Who's Ryan Odom? Oh, he was the UMBC guy. That creates buzz. And I know the thing that got me into college basketball and specifically into Providence was, I remember, I was in like middle school and I saw they're hiring the national coach of the year, Keno Davis, right? So the buzz is important. It's not as important as obviously winning games and like maintaining a good program, but there is value in the buzz.
I will also say, I mean, I think my argument would be Porter, James Jones, Odom, none of them are distinctly better than Cluess. And if all the people in grassroots basketball are telling you to hire Cluess, then you just do it. I think the other thing I will say kind of generally on that whole front was like, remember when Tim Cluess's name was first floated at St. John's? Like the start of the search when they were like, oh, we're getting Bobby Hurley. Like, oh, Tim Cluess is terrible. Look at his teams. They're not good. They don't play defense. He's a Keno Davis 2.0. Like, this team this would be a bad hire for a failing program. Like all the St. John's fans were saying, oh, this guy sucks. And then it was like, but the media was like, no, Tim Cluess is great. You guys want Tim Cluess. And then like by like Monday of this week, everyone's like, "Oh my God, how are you not hiring Tim Cluse?" It's like a national catastrophe. Like the St. John's fans had all of a sudden decided he's the best, the best player in the country, best coach in the country. Excuse me.
And I mean, in terms of like the grass, being in with the grassroots guys, like that's important. But I mean, what if another coach comes in and they have more of a connection, or like say like a Seton Hall or something hires an assistant who's really connected in like the Wrens, and then all of a sudden, St. John's thought that they were going to get all those guys, but they all go to. I mean, there's so many variables that it seems like you can't really hinge on that. And I know St. John's has had a lot of success getting transfers. They have some very good transfers, currently on the team. I mean, in 2019, very viable way. I mean, there's so many ways to build. Like you don't have to get New York players. I mean, you can get New Jersey players, NEPSAC players, transfers, JUCOs. I mean, there's a million different ways, to build a team. So I'm not sure how much stock I would put into the fact that they could get kids from the local AAU teams.
It is funny because like people, I was kind of interacting with some Arkansas fans once Mike Anderson got hired, because I tweeted, Mike Anderson's never been north of Columbia, Missouri in his life. And they were like, well, Eric Musselman has no recruiting experience down here, but you think that's a great hire. Why can't, Mike Anderson be fine up there? And I was like, I don't know. I think there's a cultural thing, right? I don't know if it's cultural. I don't think cultural is the right word, but like the idea that like it is expected at St. John that you have some New York City kids. You don't have to be all New York City kids, but like part of St. John's allure is like, oh, this kid from the city playing in the Garden, like even though that isn't like hasn't played out in reality, like that's the allure of St. John's. And like I don't think like at Arkansas it's so important. Like we got to have a team full of guys from Little Rock and Fayetteville.
Yeah, I can see that.
I mean, I don't think it's a be all end all, but I think there's there's a nice vision in St. John's fans' heads of like building a roster of like all the good city kids from the last couple of years. You're getting Cole Anthony, and you're getting, I don't know, Isaiah Washington and Quinterly, and I mean, I don't know how well it's all working, but that would all work out. But like the idea being of like if there's a high major kid in the city, they're visiting St. John's and might be going to St. John's.
Yeah, I could see that. But I mean, I think like in terms of, if they can get guys in there and they start winning, I think the fans, I mean, maybe after they start winning for a couple of years, it's like, like we're losing in the first round of the NCAA tournament. Maybe if we had some New York City kids, we would do better. And then they turn on Mike Anderson, like happens so often, the old Jamie Dixon effect.
Well, that's the concern, I think, for St. John's is like, if you're Mike Anderson, you just took this job, you have no time. It's going to take time to build this roster, especially given how many guys have left. It looks like Figueroa is going to stay, so that's good. But like, if you're Mike Anderson, how much time is the St. John's fan base, who, how if it doesn't like you, is going to give you?
Well, so in terms of
Mike Cragg might leave.
Yeah, that's very true. In terms of the roster itself, though, it's not in terrible shape. Especially if Figueroa stays, I would say it's in good shape. Besides the fact that they don't have a point guard.
Point guard.
But so, and I don't mean good shape as in like a tournament team, but I mean like they won't be terrible if their lineup is insert a grad transfer point guard and then Heron, Figueroa, Caraher, and then you have either Kita or Steer at the 5. And I know Josh Roberts got some more playing time of late at the 5. And then Eli Wright's a good 6th man. I know the fan base wanted Mullins to play Greg Williams a lot more. He's still around after having a minor role freshman year. And then there's plenty of grad transfers to kind of fill out the roster.
Brad, maybe they can hold on to superstar guard Brian Trimble.
I hope they don't for their sake. It's funny because I was updating my depth charts from this past year. I was just putting like the final touches on some of them, like researching teams. I have a few left, but one of the ones I did today was Western Kentucky, and I didn't realize because Jake Omer was a pretty pivotal piece, pivotal a extreme exaggeration, but he was like a valuable piece as a freshman. And then this year he did absolutely nothing. And I was just thinking about his game, and he basically just kind of hangs around the 3-point line and fires threes. And then it made me think of our conversation earlier about Brian Trimble and how, that you need shooting, but if all the person can provide is just kind of stay behind the line and shoot like average to below average from three, you might as well sacrifice some shooting.
Well, the thing is, like if you look purely from a points per shot perspective, like you want to be at 1.2, which means you have to shoot 40% from three in order to be in a decent spot if you're never getting fouled, right? Like, because you're never gonna get fouled if you're just running on. Like, how often is Jake Omer get into the line by like attacking the rim? He never is, or Brian Trimble never is. So you have to shoot 40%. Like that's the watermark you have to hit. If you don't hit that, you're in trouble. And so, or you're basically a harm to the offense, other than like the spacing bump. But I mean, I guess the question is like, how hard are you guarding Brian Trimble? Like if I'm game planning St. John's last year and like Brian Trimble comes in, I'm like, oh my God, we have to like keep to Brian Trimble or else we're in trouble.
Nope, you're focused on. I mean, if you're focused on someone on last year's St. John's team behind the line, it's Marvin Clark.
Right.
It's not Trimble.
Yeah. Anyway, I think Mike Anderson can do fine. It's just hiring the right people, and I think he will. So we'll see what happens there. But that was a fun way to keep the week going, because otherwise the transfer market was pretty quiet. Why don't we touch on some of the stuff that did come out in recruiting news as well?
First,
sure.
If I could interject.
Of course.
The search that was the polar opposite of St. John's was Cincinnati.
Oh, yeah.
Where it's like, all right, you can either go with Matt McMahon or John Brandon. Local guys, successful mid-major programs. I mean, both guys are probably more accomplished recently than Cluse has been. I'll put it that way. Murray State winning a game. Northern Kentucky was a 13 seed, I believe. They were a 15 seed a couple years ago. But talk about an impressive transition. We're saying it was tough for Loyola to go from the Horizon to the Valley. Going from Division II to Division I is a whole different animal. So John Brandon deserves an enormous amount of credit. And I think that's a very good hire for Cincinnati. I saw that. I don't know if it's part of the fan base, but definitely a lot of the past players were angry that Nick Van Exel didn't get the call. I mean, how do you argue with Brandon?
Right, Brandon's a perfect hire. I also think the leaking is important, right? Like St. John's, it was like every hour. It was either Andrew Slater, Adam Zagoria, or Zach Brasler who had like had a scoop. And Cincinnati was like, okay, like here's like the 6 people that they might hire. Frank Martin got a call, and then I was like, okay, John Brandon got hired. Smart hire. John Brandon, by the way, like sneaky one of the best coaching jobs and coaching hires, if you think about it, at Northern Kentucky. I mean, they were transitioning from the ASUN to the Horizon after being non-D1, had no success in their like 2 years of D1 ball. John Brandon comes in and wins 20 games 3 years in a row in years 2, 3, and 4. Brings in the best player in the league and Drew McDonald. Makes 2 NCAA tournaments. Like, that's unbelievable. Like, people always hype up Grand Canyon. Like, Northern Kentucky is the like substance version of Grand Canyon. They actually make the tournament and beat good teams and have a big building and like good fan support and everything. Great program, great rising, and like they might get Pat Kelsey. That's the buzz.
Until Kelsey sees campus and turns around, and heads home. He must regret that.
Maybe. I mean, may not, based on what's going on at UMass.
That's true. It feels like Winthrop hasn't been as good lately.
His thing is like he didn't want to jump to a job because he thought Xavier might open, and he wanted to jump to like a quick fix, and UMass is not going to be a quick fix. But then he didn't get Xavier, and now he's like, I don't want to get stuck at Winthrop, so I'm just going to take a better job next time I can get it, which is why he sniffed Siena last year. Siena didn't pay.
Anyway. Yeah, so they made the tournament in 16-17, where I believe, did they lose to Butler in the first round?
Winthrop? Yeah, they were like a 3-14 or 5-12, something like that.
Yep. They lose to Butler, and then the last 2 years, I mean, top half of the Big South, but not as good as before. So yeah, this certainly makes sense as a time to leave. And speaking of Frank Martin, I mean, he's involved in like 50% of the coaching searches. He's a perfect parachute candidate for himself because after the Final Four, South Carolina hasn't done much, and I mean, they're bubble-ish, I guess, next year if AJ Lawson comes back, which he should.
I mean, South Carolina's places though, Brad, where like I don't think they care. Right? Like
I guess that's true.
He's set. The media reputation is incredible for Frank Martin. Like in terms of like the national media is always like, oh, Frank Martin's so good. Like he's a stud. And he's a good coach, no doubt. I think he's fine. But I mean, he just keeps sniffing at jobs and he has this crazy buyout that like caused him to never have a chance. But like I don't know why he does it. Does he dislike South Carolina?
I'm not sure. He was mentioned with like UConn last year briefly. He mentioned Cincinnati, UNLV. I mean, he's all over the place. For a guy who's made the tournament once at South Carolina, or once or twice at South Carolina.
He has the one run. I mean, like he's the Porter Mosier of high major coaches. One great run, average the rest of his career, good reputation.
Yeah, he though has a lot of juice from Kansas State.
That's true.
But yeah, so he makes
juice from.
Yeah, he's made one NIT and one NCAA tournament in 7 years.
Ooh, Final Four. If he loses to Marquette the first game of that tournament, is he a hot seat?
He's probably gone by then, right?
Yeah, it's crazy. Crazy.
I mean, actually, maybe not. I mean, probably hot seat right now. Yeah, you're right. But I mean, that game was played in South Carolina. It was like this big controversy.
Oh yeah, and they beat Duke. PJ Dozier, Sindarius Thornwell, good squad. Anyway, transfers quickly.
Well, I mean, Matt, not really quickly, right? That's the rest of the show.
So we have to go over our top 25.
Oh, that's why you're here to keep me from opining about transfers for the next hour.
Why don't we do top 25 and then see how much time we have left for transfers? We know the people don't want to listen to a 2-hour podcast. If you do want to listen to a 2-hour podcast, by the way, drop it in the comments. We'll make one because we talk for that long anyway. So let's look preseason top 25. How are they ranked, Brad? How do we find the rankings here on the spreadsheet?
So they're in order.
Okay.
Here I'll
order. You're good.
Make another column and I'll just number them.
Okay. All right. So why don't we go through the top 10 first off? So this is the composite. We had how many exactly voters? We have
24.
All right. So that's you, me, Rob Doster, John Rothstein, Gary Parrish, Myron Metcalf, Aaron Torres, Connor Hope, Barstool Reegs, Tony Patelis, Jeff Eisenberg, who's BB?
Busting brackets. I don't know if that was Lucas or Tristan. But
Andy Katz, Kyle Kensing, Sports Illustrated, Mike Rutherford from SB Nation, Three Man Weave, Joe Nardone, Jeff Goodman, Blue Ribbon, Shelby Mast, Mike DeCourcy, Athlon, and Buzz King. So that's 24 polls from a mix of blue check media and independent media. And let's go through the top 10 first.
And then first, I mean, if you're asking why 24, not 25, it's because I bought, I think it was Lindy's, the magazine, right, like the preseason one at the grocery store. Didn't really look at it, just grabbed it and took it, and it was the NBA one.
Oh.
But the reason why I was confused is because the cover of it, and now I live in Massachusetts, the cover of it was Kevin Knox in a Kentucky jersey and Joe Harris in a Brooklyn Nets jersey. So I must have just seen the Kentucky, just grabbed it. But, like, I live in Massachusetts. Why isn't it like a Celtics cover?
That's a good point. Very good point. All right, let's go through 24 ballots, 25 teams. Well, more than 25 teams. But the top 10 of the composite was number 1 was Kansas, number 2 Kentucky, number 3 Gonzaga, number 4 Duke, number 5 Virginia, number 6 Tennessee, Number 7, Nevada. Number 8, North Carolina. Number 9, Auburn. Number 10, Villanova. So the biggest miss in the top 10 is Kansas, but very excusable, obviously, given the injuries. I mean, I think that's the obvious answer. Like, were they as good? Even with Udoka, I don't think they were the best team in the country. With Udoka, because obviously Charlie Moore didn't play as well. KJ Lawson was nothing. Quentin Grimes was nothing. But like, still, like a top 10 team if they stay healthy. Brad, is that fair?
Yeah, I think with Vic and Azubuike, I think that they're probably top 5, if not 6.
And if you look back, they still beat Tennessee on a neutral. They played a tough schedule, which didn't help, but they beat some teams. Like they were a good. That was a good basketball team still. Won an NCAA tournament game, so not a complete failure. Definitely not number 1 overall, but that was kind of a what can go wrong will go wrong type season. So it happens. Duke at 4, which I think was right preseason. They didn't win the title. It's not like it was the right number. I mean, if Zion isn't the best player in college basketball in the last 15 years, we were right. But he turned out to be the best player in 15 years.
Yeah, that's perfectly reasonable. I mean, they were a 1 seed who didn't make the Final Four, so can certainly be argued.
Nevada at 7 was too high, but not crazy. I mean, I still think they were probably a top 20 team all year.
Yep, and then Villanova at 10 was another one where they started off slow, really picked it up, then they were just a roller coaster of a season. It didn't get much outside of their top 2 of Booth and Pascal, but for some reason people think they'll be better this year. That's a discussion for another day.
Villanova's lowest ranking was by Blue Ribbon. That was 21. But most people had them kind of very tight range of like 8 to 12. Kyle Kensing at Athlon had them at 16. But for the most part, between 8 and 12, Rob Doster had them at 5. That was too high. I had them at 7. That was too high.
How about Blue Ribbon almost spot on there?
What Blue Ribbon
do? You said that
Yeah.
They were 21, right?
Yes, I thought you were saying like the whole rankings.
Oh no. But well, I mean, I haven't looked, but I know that they got a lot of heat. I saw on Twitter for having them so low. Yet that's pretty much exactly where they land.
Perfect. Absolutely. Well done, Blue Ribbon. Your assessment Villanova was right. Auburn at 9. That's where you put them at the end of the year.
You know, where you put them at the beginning of the year, or really what they did throughout the year. But I mean, that was their ceiling. Brad, where did you wind up hedging on Auburn? You still had a 5.
I'm at 5. I mean, we talked about this a couple podcasts ago, but I vastly overrated Austin Wiley. He was a shell of the player I saw at the combine scrimmages, where I thought he was really impressive among some of the best players in college basketball.
No one had
Harper and Brent.
12.
What are you saying?
No one had Auburn lower than 12.
Which maybe I guess that's right. I mean, I'm trying to think if like I didn't get like the final version of people's rankings and people dropped them lower. But I don't know why they would be dropped lower. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I'll buy that. All right, let's do the next 10. So 11 was Michigan State, 12 was Kansas State, 13 was Virginia Tech, which is very spot on. Like that's where they were all year. West Virginia, 14, brutal. Oregon, 15, brutal for most of the year. Florida State, 16, pretty much right on. Mississippi State at 17, fairly accurate. Michigan, 18, pretty low. Syracuse, 19, they were not ranked. And LSU at 20. So thoughts there on some teams. Obviously, we've kind of touched at length at how Oregon and West Virginia we missed on big time. Syracuse, I was correct. The hype was wrong. Their offense didn't get that much better. Tyus Battle is still an inefficient scorer. I will brag on that one. Did I hedge and put him in?
No.
Let's go.
And the thing with Syracuse too is it was Dolezaj and O'Shea Brissett were the guys who didn't live up to expectation, and then Frank Howard too. But Elijah Hughes was a lot better than expected. But yes, they were worse. And in terms of this post top 10 grouping, Michigan State, Kansas State, Virginia Tech with a clear 11, 12, 13. And then there was a big drop. And then 14 through like 20 or a 21 were super closely ranked. West Virginia at the top of that ranking. Them and Oregon were 14 and 15. Obviously, those were wrong. And then at the back end, Syracuse is wrong. And then at 21, UCLA, very, very wrong. Which, I mean, we were on top of that easy.
Yeah, that was so easy. I mean, we knew UCLA was a flop.
Looking at the kind of highlights of UCLA's rankings, Doster at 16, Portis at 12.
I mean, I don't know what people saw. Like, the roster wasn't that good.
It was worse than the year prior when they had Aaron Holiday and Thomas Welsh and were in the first four. What they did was, and this is why I bring up the recruiting rankings point a lot, the team recruiting rankings point, is that they saw that they had a high recruiting class. Why did they have a high recruiting class? Because they got so many players. Why did they have so many players? Because they had so many needs to fill. That's why you say, oh, this team had the number 6 ranked recruiting class. Why aren't they in the top 25?
Yeah, absolutely. It was absurd. It was absolutely absurd. The UCLA was ranked preseason by anyone. Michigan, Brazdeikis, I think, was the biggest reason for surprise, right? Him and Xavier Simpson's emergence, and Teskey. I was going to say Teskey as well. I think that's the 3 really that stunned people, was how good those 3 guys were. But that made that team elite. Michigan State just felt like they weren't going to get over the hump, and they did just because of, not because of talent, really just like Kenny Goings was good and great chemistry. Yeah,
I mean, this, especially because they did a lot of their best work, making the Final Four without Langford, and Ward was hurt for a lot. They got nice contributions from a lot of different guys, and they had a star in Winston.
The consensus preseason national player of the year, now he's back. Like, there's no debate.
And there's no debate that Michigan State's number 1. Right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see who else you could put unless Kentucky gets if Kentucky got Blackshear, would you consider them?
I don't think so, because they already have Richards and Sestina, right? So the jump from Kerry Blackshear to like the delta between Kerry Blackshear and those guys isn't as high. I think if they got like a perimeter scorer, that's something that they don't really have. I mean, I guess you could say Keon Brooks, but he's ranked in the spot where maybe he has a slower adjustment. Not all guys in that kind of back of the 5-star range are great right away. But if they can get someone who could knock down threes, and play the 2 or the 3 with some size on the wing, I mean that would be the ideal player there.
I saw someone from a Sea of Blue, their SB Nation affiliate, suggesting they take Cameron Justice. I think that's too big a leap for him. But if you just want a shooter, I mean, I don't know that he's going to be that much better than Jamal Baker though.
That's true. Looking at the grad transfer list I have for some scoring kind of wing types, we just touched on Cam Justice. How about Javen Cumberland?
Maybe. Again, I don't know how much he really is in that context.
Yeah, I mean it's going to be hard to find someone in Kentucky's context.
Edmund Gilbert.
He might be too combo guard-ish for what they, for the ideal fit, but he would be a good fit, certainly. Christian Keeling already cut his list.
You absolutely take him if you can get him. I feel like he's just he's too good a player.
And I think he can transfer within the SEC because wasn't it Murphy Holloway went Ole Miss to South Carolina and then back to Ole Miss?
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, I mean, if they can get him, that'd be a pretty good get. We'll see if they can.
What about Rajon Tucker? That'd be a good one.
I don't know how much you trust the shot, but
fair.
Still, I mean, I think he's pretty good. And looking back at this top 25, we could talk about this stuff all day. 21 was UCLA, 22 was Clemson, 23 was TCU. 24 was Washington. 25 Florida. 26 Indiana. 27 Marquette. 28 NC State. 29 Loyola. 30 Nebraska. So we did. I mean, this is where it got really tight because between 21 and 30, the range, or 22 and 30, let's do it, was between 23.88 or 22.88, 22.38. Oh my God, I can't speak. 22.38 for Clemson and 25 for Nebraska. That's 10 spots in terms of composite ranking. So that's pretty unbelievable in terms of.
Well, no, it's because for when a team was unranked, I gave them 26.
Oh, okay.
Right. So it's not like if everyone did like a top 100,
Okay.
and then we took the composite top 25, then it'll be a lot different. But like if we scroll to column, and this is only for Kevin, obviously, column AE, it's number of polls that they were in. So like Washington was only in 12 of the 24.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, I also would generally, like, we felt, at least I certainly did, felt like the top 18, 19 teams were pretty clear. And then after that, I was like, oh God, what do I do?
Yep. For me, it was 19 and 20 where I thought Florida was going to be a lot better. And being 19, I thought the gap between them and TCU at 20 was going to be pretty big. But neither team was as good. But TCU lost Jalen Fisher.
And we had 40 different teams in the top 25, or in top 25 of our composite. To wrap up the final 10, Purdue at 31, way underrated, but right preseason, I would say. I mean, not knowing what they had, not knowing Ryan Klein would be terrific, not knowing that, Harms would take a step and Travion Williams, and like the things that needed to happen for Purdue to be as good as they were was a lot. And it just happened to work out for them. Yeah, Purdue at 31, USC at 32. That was a big whiff. Maryland at 33, underrated. Alabama at 34, overrated. Butler at 35, overrated. Texas at 36, about right, actually. Cincinnati at 37, underrated. Louisville at 38, also underrated, probably.
Yeah,
And
I would say that's right on for Louisville.
it's not crazy. Certainly. And Xavier at 39 by the end of the year sounds about right, and 40 for Arizona State.
Let's see. I mean, the Loyola stuff was crazy. I know people mentioned Jason McIntyre had them at like number 4 or something. That was insane.
I ducked and ranked them.
I didn't include his, I don't think, because there was someone's. Yeah, it must have been him. I didn't include it because he had like Texas A&M at number 8, and it said like, with the core of DJ Hogue, Tyler Harris, and Admon Gilder, like no way Texas A&M is not a top 10 team. It's like if you're not even using the right roster, like how do I know what rosters you're using? Like this is invalidated.
Yeah, it's very tough. It's like I don't know. I mean, I think he did it really early. Where there was still some question if guys were coming back, but I mean, still, it's ridiculous.
I think it was clearly after both of those had left.
Also, correction, we have 48 teams. I missed the final 8. So 41 was Notre Dame. But at that point, it wasn't like one person votes for them. They're in. I mean,
yeah.
Iowa State, South Dakota State, that was kind of crazy. UCF, Wisconsin, they deserve more love. Buffalo, St. John's, and Arizona.
Yep, so I'll be doing this again this year, except I want to do one after players can come back, and then one right before the start of the season, and then compare.
Okay. Yeah, because if I recall, I think like maybe one of my polls, at least for why I might have switched it out, had like teams ranked that was like from right after, and like I had people ranked. I was like, oh, I don't agree with that anymore.
Yeah, and I updated this like pretty extensively. Like whenever someone was making a new one, I was coming here and fixing it, so it's pretty accurate. But very interesting look back. Do you want to get to some transfers now?
Absolutely. Let's get to some quick. We got maybe 10 minutes or so to talk transfers. Sound about right?
Sounds good.
Yeah. Okay. So transfers. Jontel Celia, butchering his name, but he's going to Arkansas, kind of a 6'8" face-up 4. I think that's a pretty solid fit. Could play in the perimeter, pretty athletic. Playing the Musselman offense.
Yeah, I mean he's an upgrade from what they had. So, I mean, you got to do that. He wasn't as good of a shooter as I thought when I looked at the numbers, but he's someone who could hit 3-pointers. He's pretty athletic. I mean, he's a good fit. He's a solid player. I bet he'll average like 6 or 7 points a game and like 4 or 5 rebounds and be a nice piece whether he starts or comes off the bench.
Which is fine, right? You can't have 13 stars.
No.
Someone you got to just take a guy who will help your team, and he'll help. So, good on them. I thought Bryce Moore to Xavier was one just kind of random that I wanted to mention. One very much feels like Kyle Castlin this year. Like not going to be a star, but play defense, hit a shot from the perimeter. Like just a useful role player for Xavier. They really like their grad transfers. They got 2 more this year with Jason Carter and Bryce Moore. So I think Xavier is in pretty good shape, especially if they bring everybody back, which it looks like they are.
Yeah. I think the best way to use grad transfers is to like plug holes around a core, and that's what Xavier's been doing. For Bryce Moore, they desperately needed some 3-point shooting because Gooden, Scruggs, and Marshall, their perimeter core, they can all create, they can all hit shots, but they're not necessarily like shooters, like they're not great outside shooters. So Moore adds like a nice little dimension there. He's a veteran, and while they have guys like Damir Bishop and Kai Tandy who are freshmen, also gives some insurance if they're not quite ready as freshmen. They can kind of be eased in. In terms of Carter, 2-year grad transfer. Hopefully he'll be better than what Wellage was for them this year. I think his game is a little more versatile than Wellage's was, but he's not quite the shooter. But I mean, he's a good fit, and he'll be a good fit next to Tyreek Jones. They have 1 scholarship open. I'm not sure if they want to go grad transfer again, maybe get like a backup center, or if they're fine with going with Fremantle and Ramsey, a pair of top 150 freshmen in that spot.
They should probably take a sit-out guy.
Yeah.
Like they could go after like a point guard because of Gooden and give yourself some insurance on Tandy if he's not great.
Well, so they have So next year they'll have Tandy, who will be a sophomore. Scruggs can play some point guard. He's almost the epitome of a combo guard, the good type of combo guard though. And they'll have Dewan Odom in 2020, who's a point guard.
I forgot about that.
I wouldn't be surprised for them to see them grab like a sit one, play one transfer at center. I know Michael Stedman just committed to Montana, but like a player like that, they had some success with Rashid Gaston from Norfolk State. Was a sit one, play one, who they used as kind of a bridge center as well. So that'll be interesting to keep an eye on.
Yeah. Next grad transfer to touch on, Daniel Utomi, goes from Akron to USC. I know there's a lot of buzz about him potentially winding up at Duquesne because he played for Keith Dambrot at Akron before Dambrot got the Duquesne job. But I thought this was like a perfect fit. 6'6", athletic kid who could play like the 3 or the 4. Shot 37% from 3 last year on 7.5 attempts. Can rebound the ball, can switch defensively. Experienced guy, like perfect fit for this roster, which is like young, good bigs, good small guards. Doesn't have anybody in them in the wings.
Yeah, I think Nikola Rakocevic, he's one of the most underrated players in the country just because USC wasn't very relevant this year. But I mean, he's a very good center. You have a veteran backcourt with Thornton and Matthews. Now Thornton needs to be better. But I mean, he's fine. Matthews is a good, maybe 3rd or 4th best player on a good team. And you add a guy like Utomi, and with this strong recruiting class, I think we're starting to get this nice mix now of veteran with young players. And I think USC, I mean, on paper that this is a tournament team, but they also were last year, so we're gonna have to see it.
Avery.
You told me. Go on. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, moving on though. Another name to watch that I figured we could bring up to Call Molson off the board. Seton Hall always looked like a very logical landing spot. Sit one, play two, big physical guard who could score 3 levels. Pretty logical pickup. I don't think he's going to be a star, but can help ease the blow of Miles Powell leaving next year.
Yeah. So they'll lose Quincy McKnight and Miles Powell from the backcourt, but Anthony Nelson and Jared Roden as freshmen this year were able to play. Bigger roles down the stretch, especially Roden. He's a really interesting player. So you can slide either Molson in at the 3 with Roden at the 4. You also have Miles Kale, who is, I believe, their second leading scorer. So that's an interesting team. On paper, lacking a star, but obviously that's 2 years away. But that's a nice perimeter core.
There's also Jarkel Joyner to Ole Miss. I haven't seen anything about a potential waiver, but he is from Oxford, so that's one to keep in mind. He can really score out of Cal Bakersfield. It's like a shifty 6-man type, not a point guard, but like very dynamic ball handler and shot creator is my understanding of his game.
And so if he gets a waiver, and then if Tyree and Schuler come back from the NBA draft, which I would think that both would, I mean, you'll have those 3 really strong perimeter players with Austin Crowley, the former Vanderbilt commit, top 150 recruit, off the bench, and then with Hinson and Buffin at the forwards, and then you have another top 150 recruit in Tavian Column. I mean, if they can get like a veteran grad transfer center in here, Ole Miss could easily return to the NCAA tournament.
I saw a little bit of hype about him potentially them looking at Kadeem Sy, which would make a lot of sense.
That'd be good.
Just fill up the front court. He does have to sit out a year as a redshirt technically, but it would be interesting to see if they try to get the. There also would be down a scholarship because Joyner fills them up, but they need a big. So I don't know if there's gonna be someone leaving or one of these guys leaves early. So we'll see there. But if he's there, he'll be really good.
Okay, next you want to touch on Pat Andre at NC State.
Yep, floor spacer. I don't love the fit athletically. Just kind of for the system they're gonna play, but I would say kind of generally he'll help, and especially given the losing Wyatt Walker, always good to add another guy who can play up front and space the floor.
Yeah, I think it was more about just adding shooting. I'm not sure if he's going to start. Bryce, I'm sure will start at either the 3 and the 4, and then Daniels could start at the 3 or Andre at the 4. You also have Jericho Helms, who had a nice freshman year. So I mean, this NC State team should be good if everyone else comes back. Walker's gone, and then if they lose Jalen Lake, I think that they could still be good. I'm not a huge Lake guy, but he would be great off the bench for them. But if Markell Johnson comes back, I mean, NC State should make the NCAA tournament. But again, we thought that last year about NC State.
Let's see. Who else is there of note to touch on before we wrap up this?
Florida and Anthony Duragi.
Yep, kind of that same mold as Cilia, right? An athletic kid who can bounce and play the small ball 4. I think it makes sense. Pretty logical fit.
Yeah, he's a better athlete than Cilia, and I think he also might be a better shooter. But I mean, he can block shots as like an athletic 4. I think he's a really interesting fit, especially if they're a future front court. Haven't seen a lot of Omar Payne yet, but I know Isaiah Stokes is more of like a ground bound skilled type. I mean, that could be a nice fit. Durgi and Stokes in the front court. Durgi and Keontae Johnson might have some overlap there, so that'll be interesting. But if you're Mike White, you had scholarships, and you need to bolster some talent if guys like Scotty Lewis and Andrew Nembhard leave after next year.
Yeah, absolutely agree. One recruiting note we should probably touch on. I think that's all the transfers. Matthew Hurt to Duke. Very logical. We knew it was coming. He'll start at the 4 next to Carey. Sounds like they're getting Cassius Stanley as well. So kind of project out the lineup now would be Trey Jones, Cassius Stanley, Wendell Moore, Matt Hurt, Vernon Carey with Boogie Ellis, O'Connell, Joey Baker, and Delorier or Bolden as your top 9.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm Bolden, I mean, I'm heading out, even as a sit one, play one.
Is
Go.
Delorier a grad transfer?
He didn't redshirt, I don't think. So I think he would just be a sit one, play one as well.
Okay.
But like, I mean, we mentioned Xavier needs to sit one, play one transfer. Marcus Bolden, go to Xavier, play 25 minutes a game.
Yeah. He'd never fit with K. He should have left after his freshman year.
Very true, but then it was what he was going to play with Wendell Carter, and then they got Marvin Bagley late, and then it set up a whole cycle there.
Recruiting over him, that's the brotherhood. That's how it works.
And then what we had just two more kind of minorish ones I want to touch on. Joey Brunk to Indiana. This doesn't make much sense for either party. I mean, I guess if you're Indiana, why not grab a pretty good player? But you have De'Aaron Davis and Trace Jackson Davis this year at the 5. I know a lot of Indiana fans told me Trace Jackson Davis isn't a 5, he's a 4. You're going to be very disappointed. And you have Justin Smith at the 4 anyway. So I'm not sure what they're doing over there. But Brunk is a 2-year grad transfer. So if he plays as little as we envision, or as I envisioned for this year, he could be back on the market next year. But also, the guy who I thought was in a similar situation last year was Michael Jacobson, because Iowa State had Solomon Young and Cam Lard. He obviously beat all of them out. And, I mean, Lard was suspended, Young was injured, but he played legitimately well. And I think, maybe Brunk could have the similar impact.
I think the Brunk thing is more about quality of life than anything else. He's an Indiana boy, wanted to play in the candy stripes. I think it makes sense. You only get to be in college once. Like, I think there are worse lives than being an Indiana basketball player, even if you're sitting on the bench, right? I mean,
that's
that was what you wanted to do. You do it, and even if it's 10 minutes a game less than he would have gotten at Butler, or 20 minutes a game less than he would have gotten at Northwestern, like, go play, go have fun. It's your life.
And then Darius McNeil from Cal to SMU, sit 1, play 2. I mean, SMU needs a stockpile talent.
Yeah, I'll buy that. They're in Yankovic is kind of a weird. He's done a couple guys. Like, he got what do you get? The kid from A&M, the big guy.
Oh, Isaiah Jacey?
Yeah,
like never played. Yeah,
worth a shot. I think he's in desperation mode.
I mean, could you imagine? I mean, they got a pretty established head coach at a good program in Illinois State to be the coach in waiting, and to think that hasn't really worked out is just kind of mind blowing to me.
Yeah. Let me see. I just want to look at their roster real quick. But yeah, they have JC up front. They also have like Ethan Chargois, who's like a weird stretch 4, stretch 5. Isaiah Mike as well. Then they have like Ty Jolly, the JUCO kid. Was he at Baylor before?
Yeah. Oh, he was Cal, and then I think he decommitted when Konzo left, if I'm not mistaken. Went to Baylor, wasn't cleared medically, went to JUCO, then was a big JUCO player and is now at SMU.
Yeah.
So I think this SMU lineup for this year is going to look like Jimmy Witt at the point, I guess.
Ugh.
Tyson Jolly, Farron Hunt, Isaiah Mike, Ethan Chargois. Which, I mean, they're all solid players. I'm not really sure about the fit. It feels like
it's not enough,
Yeah, it's not enough.
But yeah, I mean, I think Yankovic is going to be in trouble. The heat's on.
Absolutely. And then just one kind of actually two interesting mid-major ones. You got Matt Freeman to Santa Barbara from Oklahoma, the stretch 5. He was in the rotation his whole career as like a small front court shooter. And then Anthony Bonner, as well as Lamont West, which we talked on a few podcasts ago, to Missouri State. Missouri State's really building something. Dana Ford very good coach. Never made the tournament at Tennessee State, but he did some good things there. That's why you can't always rely on tournament wins and flashy stuff.
It was a tough job.
Yeah.
But I mean, I was seconds away from breaking the Anthony Bonner news first. Just got beat out. It's too bad. But hey, it's a good get. He can really shoot the ball. Just like a logical get. Like if you're a grad transfer, if you're in the market for a grad transfer, like fit a role. That team has, lots of guys who can create. Like Josh Hall's like an athletic wing. Tyreek Dixon. You got like the front court, which should be really good. They need like a guy who can just stand on the perimeter and shoot threes, and that's what Bonner can do. Very logical. That staff is a killer staff between him and Jace Hurl, Josh Sheedrick, who did a really good work at Samford. They're in good shape.
Yeah, I always liked Dixon at Middle Tennessee. I thought that was a great pickup for him. I thought he could have gone high major. Just the interest wasn't there. He's a good like glue guy point guard. And then I think Gage Prim, I believe is his name. JUCO. He's now the number 2 JUCO player in the country.
Steal.
So with him, West, Bonner, Dixon, mentioned Josh Hall from Nevada as a good glue guy. I mean, they've built quite the team.
Absolutely. But yeah, I mean, I think they're in very good shape. I think that roster, they don't really have to do much more. I think they're looking for one more piece, possibly a sit-out guy. But we'll see there. But love the direction of that program. And that hire was not like a slam dunk on paper. It was like a good hire on paper. It was like, okay, will he get enough players? But he's built the staff and they're rolling. And in the Valley, the league is kind of down right now. I mean, Loyola should be fine, but there's no team that scares you. So good shape. Good shape for Missouri State.
And they'll do it.
Yeah, I will. Another good podcast. I hope you all enjoyed it. We went through our top 25 from preseason, the composite that Brad took such good care of all season long. Lots more transfer news to talk about when we come back next week, as always. And it should be fun because now that the coaching season is really slowed to a halt, now I can sit all day when I'm bored and look at which transfers are going where, because that's what I love to do. So hope you all enjoy that. I'm sure Brad will be doing the same. Thanks for listening. As always, please rate and review this podcast wherever you listen. It does help others find it. And have a great night.